President Trump's kicking button, taking names as he turbocharges America into the golden age. At any moment, 47 will be making a massive infrastructure announcement at the White House, an AI project named Stargate. President Trump hitting the ground running as he ruthlessly wipes away the stench of Joe Biden's awful record. So far, he's purged over 1,000 Biden appointees.
Decision of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others. A requirement that federal workers return to full-time in-person work immediately. The withdrawal from the Paris Climate Treaty.
The guy's also on an executive order rampage, Roman Coliseum style. MAGA fans roared at the Capital One Arena as Trump sat at a desk on stage, pen in hand, churning out orders on gender, DEI, the TikTok ban, and ditching the Paris Climate Accord. And he was loving every second of it, tossing pens into the crowd like he was launching T-shirts from a cannon. The liberal media just can't handle this much winning.
He has decided to make good on his promise to be a dictator on day one.
There'll be a lawsuit over birthright citizenship. There'll be a lawsuit over suspending asylum. You know, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
There were a lot of big lies there.
Been president for a grand total of 11 hours, and he wasted no time imposing his will on American government.
I was prepared for shock and awe. This is just shock and awful.
The executive orders on DEI in prisons, migrant shelters, as well as in spaces like rape shelters, that could mean that people that are transgender could be moved out of those spaces.
All right, Judge Ginny, we did a little research. I was expecting people to laugh when I said that. And the amount of executive orders on day one for Biden or Obama, there's a couple. I mean, this is testament to how well he was prepared going in.
Well, first of all, when you listen to those left-wing progressive, hosts and talking heads, do they not understand what happened on November 5th? Do they not understand that everything the president was talking about as he signed those executive orders were promises that he made during the campaign, that he said he would do and that he is in the process of delivering? Do they not understand how unprecedented this country is in terms of, the border disaster, in terms of the lack of law and order, what it needs to get this country back on track? I mean, Joe Biden was probably, to me, one of the worst presidents in history. He allowed an invasion of the border. They shut us up for 2 years by saying, we are people, we're xenophobes. We don't want other people coming into this country. Therefore, don't say it's an invasion. It's exactly what it was. They were unvetted. They came in. They committed crimes. We're not allowed to keep numbers on them because secretaries of state and other state officials will not give us that information. And now what you've got are these people saying it's terrible. And Jay Johnson saying if it's not broke, don't fix it. Is the border not broke? Is law and order not broke in this country? And finally, let me just say, I love a president who can go from church in the morning to all kinds of ceremonies and inauguration, and then go to the arena, sign these orders, and then go to every ball and, be out there and be responsive to the press and invite them into the Oval Office. It's like, this is my home. Come on in. I'm signing laws for you. They're crazy on the left.
Speaking of, Jessica, we'll go to you next. What is your favorite, if you had to pick one, executive order?
My favorite as a Democrat or my favorite as an American?
I don't see why you should differentiate.
Well, because there is some partisanship going on in all of this. And
so
there are
you
points
admit
to be
that
made.
some partisanship is un-American?
I think to some degree, of course. I think
Thank you.
There is some consensus to be had in this. And, like the back to work policy, that will penalize some people that I think have legitimate reason to need to work from home. And hopefully they'll be able to make their case, whether that's taking care of a loved one. They maybe have moved during the pandemic and are still doing their job effectively. But I think it's a good thing that people are in their office. I think that makes sense.
It's a good pick.
I think some of the DEI programs went too far, and everyone has accepted that in the public and the private sector, right? You have a huge surge of roles in companies, large and small, after the murder of George Floyd, and a lot of them have just quietly gotten rid of them even before it was clear that Donald Trump was going to win again. So I think that we can talk about things like that. I think you can even talk about the EV mandate. All of the automakers who share the same aspirations and goals as former President Biden have said we're not going to make our targets. So obviously we need to reassess that to some degree. But when the judge says, this is what the people voted for, some of it they absolutely did not. And Donald Trump promised that he would bring your costs down right away. And he revoked Biden's policy to lower prescription drug prices or to make it so Medicare can't negotiate itself for prescription drug prices. That's not cool.
What
Where is that? Where was that?
It's look in the list.
Well, show me.
What do you mean?
There's a lot more to that issue, but
yeah.
Okay. Did the American people on November 5th vote for 1,660 Afghans who are being resettled here, have gone through the government process, people who helped us during the war in Afghanistan, which is translators, risking their lives, people who are on target lists for the Taliban, they had their flights canceled.
The answer is yes, they did vote for it.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they
didn't.
did.
If you sat there.
Yes, they did.
No, they
Sorry,
didn't.
Trump did not hide any of this from
That's not
anyone.
true.
And that's the difference.
You guys sat here and you argued that the Afghanistan withdrawal was one of the worst atrocities in foreign policy, that we left people behind, not only American service members and Americans who are still living, the American service members who passed away tragically and the ones who are still living, but the people that helped us for years during that war. And now you say, it's fine that their flights are just canceled?
No, I didn't say it's fine. I'm saying that Americans voted for it. That's the difference. I don't have to say it's fine. I'm just telling you the reality.
Did you vote to revoke birthright citizenship for the children of people who are here legally?
Do you understand what that means?
Yeah, I do.
Tell me about it. Tell me what birthright citizenship meant.
Well, I think when Donald Trump was talking about it and disparaging people over here, he was talking about undocumented people who come and drop their anchor babies. He wasn't talking about people who are here on student visas, people who are here on H-1B visas.
You're always going to choose this weird exception.
No,
the fact is the
it's
system
not
is being
weird.
gamed. Americans voted for Donald Trump because they saw these systems, these institutions being gamed. The asylum issue, the birthright citizen issue, Title IX issues. Every single part of society was being gamed by the left. And finally, Americans got pushed too far. The point is, you don't have to like everything in the restaurant to like the restaurant. There are things, I go to a restaurant, I don't eat any seafood, but I like that restaurant because it's got steak. There are things that Trump will do that I will disagree with, but the entire package is as close as you're going to get to what Americans want. Trump is redefining basically what a human being can do in 24 hours. It's incredible. He did more in a day than Biden did in his damn career, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. He had 3 balls last night. That's 3 more than Adam Kinzinger. The guy hasn't slept in 2 days. I mean, the thing is, it's amazing. It's possible. It is possible. Donald Trump could complete his presidency in 3 months. Right. And then he could just say, you know what?
Is that a promise?
I'm going to coast.
Yeah, he goes, you know what, JD, you take it from here. I think I did everything I could do. It's incredible. And by the way, you brought up, and you said it was a good thing, the fact that these people have to go back to work, but then you mentioned all these challenges they have. Well, welcome to America. Every single one of us has a challenge, but yet we come to work. I'm not going to pay for their porn addiction. If they want to sit home in front of Pornhub and go, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, you know what? Everybody in America could stay home because they have a sick loved one or a baby, but they aren't. They're coming to work. They should go. I'm glad that he got rid of the appointees. I need work around the house. I pay well.
Thanks, hiring.
But I'm not done.
Okay.
I'm not done. I got to bring up the Nazi hoax thing because we all know this is BS. And yet the media is redefining losing every single day. Day one, they say Elon Musk made a Nazi salute. Right. And I'm beginning to think, they know they're lying. So why are they doing this? Because they realize they cannot rebuild their credibility. They're like a fat guy on death row. What's the point in dieting? You're already dead.
Looking forward to that last meal. Dana Perino, your thoughts?
I just add a couple of things. So one of the things President Trump was doing was not creating new policy. he was getting rid of policies that Biden had put in place that people said they didn't want. And the ending DEI was 70%, so they supported that. Ending the EV mandates, that was 70%. Finishing the border wall and deportation, 70%. Now, they might not have gotten there without Joe Biden's broken border policy. That might have been a lower number, but that's where they were on Election Day. Getting men out of women's sports, that was like an 80-20 issue, maybe even more. And so it wasn't so much that there was like, oh, here's a brand new policy. It was like, here's all these things that you said, America, you did not like for the last 4 years, and how I'm going to be able to make it better.
All right. Like Greg said, you don't have to like everything on the restaurant menu. You just have to like a few things, and you'll patronize the place day after day.
I will not spend my money there.
Okay, we'll see about that. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.